Hi all, welcome back to DannyBTalks. I didn't really expect to be having the same exact discussion that I had after Daytona here after Atlanta, but yet, here we are. And it's truly a shame because, in my opinion, I feel that the changes that were made to Atlanta Motor Speedway may have somehow accidentally created just the perfect drafting track for NASCAR. I mean, it truly feels like the old EA Sports video games that I used to play in terms of how they race. Let's start off this discussion though by once again revisiting the final lap of duel number 2 at Daytona. The caution comes out as Austin Cindric and Erik Jones are literally feet away coming to the finish line. Austin Cindric wins because of the caution, but Erik Jones would have won if they kept it green. Then let's take a look at the final lap of the Daytona 500. Denny Hamlin, Cole Custer, and Austin Cindric and many others behind them wreck on the final lap down a backstretch at Daytona. Rather than following the precedent of throwing the caution that was set in duel number 2, they realized where the wreck occurred and they let the race play out because it wasn't going to impact the winner of the race. Then, let's visit the finish of Saturday's Xfinity Series race at Atlanta. It's the final lap, and another big crash happens on the backstretch at Atlanta, while Austin Hill seemingly has found a good lead and he wins at Atlanta. That part's no surprise. There's honestly nobody as good as Austin Hill when it comes to racing in the Xfinity Series on superspeedway drafting style tracks. I mean, I think he led for like 140 plus of 163 laps on Saturday. Really, it's just Austin Hill's playground out of that series. But, once again, they continued the precedent of letting them race to the checkered flag. But the problem NASCAR fans now have is what happened yesterday in the Cup Series race. Once again, we had a big crash on the final lap down the backstretch, and rather than following the new precedent, the caution comes out. Now both times previously the leader and others were spaced out. There was no true race against William Byron at Daytona, or Austin Hill in the Xfinity Series race at Atlanta. But in yesterday's Cup Series race, many NASCAR fans feel like we were robbed of another photo finish at Atlanta because this time, instead of spaced out leaders, Carson Hocevar had just created a 3-wide situation that would have probably created a great finish yet again. But instead, we threw to caution as the leaders were approaching turn 4. In the grand scheme of things, this accident likely wasn't going to impact the finish of this race, much as the Xfinity Series crash didn't as well. They happened in almost the exact same areas. However, while I'm disappointed that they didn't follow through the new precedent set after the Daytona 500 and the Xfinity Series race, Eric Estep reminded me on Twitter that, well, they did live up to a promise they made. Eric had said on Twitter that the wreck was the exact same type of wreck as yesterday, similar spot. Elton Sawyer said today that NASCAR would throw to caution if that happened. They did. So on one hand, I'm disappointed mainly because of what we saw over the last 2 times this happened and the fact that it took away such a great finish from us. But on the other hand, I've got to applaud and appreciate NASCAR for standing on business with the promise they made. I was certainly hoping to see Carson Hocevar pull it off and get that first win. Earlier this year on NWP, we gave our predictions of who we think would be in this year's playoffs, and I did have Carson Hocevar on my list simply because of how I believe he could be brave enough to do something crazy and get a win on a superspeedway, and we very nearly saw that come to fruition. With that said, it's that same braveness and boldness that does worry me. Many of Carson's competitors weren't happy with him following the race. Kyle Busch certainly made that very clear on his radio.
Go tell at 77 he's done that same move 10 times. I don't care if I wreck the whole field, I'm over him. He's a douchebag, I'm gonna wreck his.
And guys like Ryan Blaney and Ross Chastain all had things to say to him after the race. Afterwards, Carson was asked by the media about that, and well, perhaps he'd rather keep that to himself and take those guys out to Chili's.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally just honestly about the triple dipper at Chili's, honestly. Yeah, obviously that's not true, but that's with me and him to discuss, and if anything, maybe I'll invite him to Chili's.
I find it most ironic that Ross Chastain is the one who is seemingly the most disappointed in Carson because only a few short years ago, we saw Ross Chastain in a very similar spot that we are seeing Carson now. Ross was seen in some eyes as the villain of modern NASCAR, while some seen him as the guy who was willing to give it all that he had to get the win. And now, Carson may very likely be the new fit in that role already, as Ross has seemingly matured fast and mellowed out with more age and experience. The two also come from the same background of Nice Motorsports. Carson even commented on that relationship and really mentorship even from Ross from their time with Al Nice, and he mentioned that Al Nice said that he roots for two guys on Sundays, that being Ross and Carson. Now I don't know what's next for Carson, but I certainly wish him the best, and I hope that first win does come sooner rather than later. He's one of those guys that I really can't help but like. He's always come across as genuine to me, and in person at the track he's always been nice to me and many others. But with that being said, the main discussion point at hand still remains the question that we find ourselves asking yet again. What warrants a caution on the last lap and what doesn't warrant a caution on the last lap? We've got to get that figured out, and the sooner we do that and stick to that, the sooner it's easier to finally just enjoy these race finishes for what they are. Now I'm not saying we go back to what NASCAR used to do and run to the line at every caution during the race, but if an accident happens that is not literally obstructing the finish line or the immediate pathway to the finish line, let's allow it in the race, please. At tracks that are bigger than a mile, this should be fairly easy to accommodate. This probably won't be the last time this year that we have this discussion, I assume, but perhaps it might be the last time we talk about this for a little bit, as we're done with 1/3 of our drafting style races already for the year, as we head to Circuit of the Americas next week. Much earlier this year than it was last season. My wife and I went last year, flying to Austin and returning back to Nashville all in one day. If you'd like to see that experience, check it out here on my channel under DannyBTalks. We won't be returning this year, but it should still be a good race, as they race on a shortened path of COTA's configuration, and I'm sure that all eyes are on some of the road course aces like Shane Van Gisbergeren and AJ Allmendinger. Connor Zilisch will also be making his Cup Series debut with Red Bull in the number 87. Many see him as a road course specialist, so it should be fun to see how he does both in the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series for Trackhouse Racing this weekend. Check us out for more this week right here on my YouTube channel for NWP. It's a special milestone this week as myself, Eric, and Jarrett celebrate episode number 300. Yes, for 300 episodes, we've been giving our hot takes live for the internet to hear. It's crazy to think about that, but it's happening. So join us right here Wednesday night, February 26th at 8 Eastern Time, 7 Central Time, as we break down Atlanta and get you all set up for Circuit of the Americas. Until next time, thanks for stopping by. This is Danny B, and I hope you have a great day. Bye, guys.